Well, starting afresh, February 16, year 2024, here with the Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Jason here. If you have time, I'll be more than happy to.
Okay.
It was a trick, actually. I don't need it.
Timer and plug that thing in.
Actually, I don't need it. That was
You
just
don't
a
need
trick.
it?
I needed you here.
Bull. You totally needed it.
It was just a trick, you know. So you're more than welcome to enlighten me with your presence.
Am I now?
Yeah. Am I now? I love that. Okay, let's see. Here we go. We can even see you loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Here we go. Man.
Loud and clear. That's
You know, we
gonna
lose the picture sometimes
Yeah, really?
on this camera. Yeah.
Camera?
Yeah, it comes and goes. It's like something here.
All right,
But
figure that out then.
um,
What I like about this background the most is the fact it looks like I'm like a Russian icon. I'm like one of like the you know
I don't know why I don't get you here.
getting signal.
Yes, see, here it's good.
So, okay, so you
This
are
just kind of stays like this when you speak.
okay. So that's because it's all the it has to go there and then there.
Yes. Okay, that's why.
So that's that board. That board because of how Zoom has its setup, it has to go down. It has to hit where the LED is. It has to touch your fader has to touch the LED, and then after that you can move it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I learned that trick from you. You know what I was thinking the other day about the box that you built? Remember when we had the head end and you built that box that I had to connect to, and do you remember that?
Yeah,
vaguely.
vaguely.
It was, I think, my entire creativity was depending on me wheeling and dealing with that box prior to starting the show.
Yeah,
Isn't it funny, but very realistic?
It was, but it was also like it was as. I mean, that setup in particular, because beforehand they had you routing into the video hub and also syncing your microphones, and from there they were being summed into a PreSonus board, and then from there the audio was routed in one more way, and then from there it went into a Blackmagic box.
Yes.
And then from there it went into another recorder, and there was a lot in that signal flow.
I will never be able to tolerate a smooth ride. You know that.
That wasn't me that built that one. And then I tried to build you a box that was a very simple box that
which you did.
No, you will never tolerate a simple ride. You will never tolerate any element of simplicity or decency.
I always wonder, I wanted to ask you about how, I mean, other than the fact that you're a very natural guy and things are kind of working for you on the behalf of what Mother Nature has to offer to us, in addition to your own precious cargo that comes into play. But there's does the concept of replenishing make sense in your journey?
Every day.
But not in the obvious way that you and I would think and agree, but replenishing like in like a high, correct, in a higher scale where, but still kind of, even though it can burn reality, it still helps stabilize it.
Yeah, I think you have to replenish. You have to. I think you're absolutely right. You have to always have something to go back to replenish, to build yourself back up again. I think that no matter what, when all of our perceptions and our experience is relative. There's always, color is relative, sound is relative, and you have to be able to, even when you're with other people, be able to pull back, be able to be by yourself, or to be in a limited capacity, because that allows you to operate in the other realm, and the other type of interaction. It's difference. Too much of any one thing isn't healthy. I mean, think about people when they eat a lot of like fast food. Once in a while, feasting on something that's really like fatty or sugary or something like that is probably, it's probably good for you in a weird way because
Yeah,
it
no,
helps center you or stabilize or something.
pleasing your psyche.
Gives you some sort of like, oh wow, this is such a treat. Like when you eat a really good piece of like fruit or cake or something, you're like, wow, this tastes amazing. If you had it all the time, how it would become meaningless. And I think that you would wind up reviling the dependency on it and the need for it constantly. Like I feel like that with my phone sometimes. And so I know that I need to go and do something that's completely opposite of it.
But
Yeah.
if when you're in survival mode, that these they don't apply. What you're saying, really, because it's the code is changing, and your body will accept all the garbage
This
in
is
the
true.
world and will actually thrive on it.
I don't
Is
know
that
if
is that fair to
I
say?
don't know if you can say thrive on it. Like if
Well,
you're saying if
in a
you're
sick way, but still,
so a
nevertheless,
sick way would not be thriving.
well, yeah,
Surviving, sustaining,
thriving
that
because
would
we
not be
realize that the system realizes how precious it is,
that would
which
not be
we when we had it in abundance that we never thought in terms of precious.
I don't know if you can consider that thriving though.
Okay, because it has an evident future, regardless
It
of anything.
has a clear and present. I would say if you are in a state of high stress and you're just eating anything that you can, it's going to burn you out. So you can't say a thrive. Like a thrive requires a large amount of support.
Also, purpose.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying that you're not going to be at points where you're like hyper focused or points where, you can make things make do. But that's a very dangerous idea. It's a very,
Can you summarize it? I'm sorry.
um, the summary is that if the definition of thriving would have to be to survive optimally, to be in an optimal situation. Um, and survival is getting by in any situation. You know, so that would be the two differences between those two. And I think for
And also
thriving,
the aspect of pleasure that comes into play, even though you can be completely devastated by the circumstances, but still you take the first bite, then pleasure kicks in
sure,
some weird way, and it doesn't match the reality because reality is miserable and intolerable and completely out of whack. So, but it's interesting how it will be introduced instantly to a pleasure, and that's the aspect of thriving. The end of pleasure is the beginning of thriving. The end of thriving, beginning of pleasure. You know what I mean? That's in a weird way, and all in a weird way, kind of come together and join forces.
I'd say contrast. So what we're talking about is contrast, right?
Not necessarily, but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah, because you're saying that one completes the other, one leads to the other, that it's always in a state of change, and that the contrast between the two defines them
if we were to
effectively.
try to fight the obvious,
Yeah,
how would we have to? What kind of adjustments we would have to make verbally to what we are discussing now?
to define the obvious,
Yeah, to no, to not to define to fight the obvious,
to fight the
to push
obvious.
to try and get rid of that obvious, and because it's so in that sense.
But what is obvious?
Well, your personal obviousness,
My personal obviousness.
yeah, which is
So
kind of a big portion of it would be universal, you know.
are you talking about my inherent assumptions?
Well, I'm talking about all assumptions, really. If you were to, you would kind of find commonality that we won't be surprised why there's so much commonality, really. That so, for example, if you were to do eating, what is the difference between stealing an apple in Auschwitz and eating from the apple in the Garden of Eden? What's more horrific? I'm sure they share some kind of level of commonality in the sense that they're forbidden, but one will be loaded with spiritual, religious connotations, and the other will be just the animal in us that just wants that piece of food, and because we want to live one more day, not to live just one more day.
It's interesting. For a minute there, I thought the two could have been swapped.
Swapped. Good.
Like the way you're putting it, like, because in the Garden of Eden, you were without knowledge. That was effectively being an animal.
That's a very, very bright observation. What you just said now. Yeah, well, I didn't think about that. When he said swap, I didn't. Now I understand what you're talking about. I do.
And if you're in this man-made hell looking for one bit of life, that is as religious as it could possibly get. I mean, like we always talk, you and I frequently talk about Frankel's man's search for meaning.
Victor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's always a profound book to go back to. By the way, terrible book to read, audiobook to read while you're at the gym. It ruined
oh my
gym.
God, who that?
I tried. I was trying to go through audiobooks. And I'm like, Frankel doesn't screw around. And I'm like, he doesn't. Frankel is as hard as
he is, but it doesn't come across initially. And because I read these books very early and I realized that he chose the word meaning when he could have been more specific, because meaning, I mean, give me a break. It's just like you're saying food without specifying what's available.
No, but he goes into...
He does, but the title, he gives you meaning. He just says...
what you're forgetting is that he was German.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking it from a non... Like when you think of meaning, like he's taking that from... He's the extension of Nietzsche.
Yeah, so it's intentions. For him, meaning is associated with intentions.
Beyond that.
No, but I mean, just to get that vessel off the ground a little bit.
Okay, sure. Okay, so there's an element to it.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, like he's the extension of Nietzsche.
But Nietzsche is more of a mathematician as much as he presents a philosophy.
No, he's not.
How so? Because he's just more like
he doesn't talk about math at all.
No, he's not. But his attitude,
no,
the
Nietzsche,
way,
nope, not at all. Nietzsche's extremely inflammatory. What if truth were a woman? What would you do with her then? I mean, he's inflammatory. He's a provocateur.
Yeah.
He's not a mathematician. No, by no means. If you wanted a guy like that, you'd be talking to Wittgenstein. So that would be the Tractatus. That is 100% the breakdown of philosophy into a business-oriented sense. Wittgenstein frequently said he wanted his philosophy to do business, to get down to business. Nietzsche is nothing but inflammatory. He's about poking and prodding people. Always has been. He'll go off and insult Socrates. He'll go off and simultaneously praise the Jewish people, but then also be divisive at the same time.
Yeah.
He was not anti-Semitic. And he frequently, he has this whole Nietzsche versus Wagner, Nietzsche v. Wagner. He goes into depth about that, but also in his private letters he does too. But no, he was by no means mathematician. Nietzsche was an extension of the Romantics in a way. Because
and that's why he ended up the way he did. The last 5 years of his life, he didn't utter a word or something.
No, he ended up like that because of syphilis.
and also because of the love of his life.
No, syphilis.
Yeah, syphilis, yes, but he
It,
was.
it was syphilis.
If it wasn't syphilis, he would go mad anyway because
Maybe
it all
I
suggested that
doubt.
he.
I doubt that it
And
was.
you would think that as being the level of his philosophy and the level of his perception, he must have been a really strong person. So you would have think that the intimacy with the women in his life, which he didn't have many anyway, would cause him to lose so much control and to be so. I wouldn't have expected him to be so
Well,
emotional, so taken by what love can do to you.
yeah, it
Is it
was.
fair statement? You think?
Um, yeah, in a way, in a way. Um, Nietzsche's sexuality. They try to get into that. A few people try to get into that, whether or not he was homosexual or not. There was one woman that he was head over heels for, and that he had at least an intellectual affair with in his way. But no, he was taken to a brothel at the age of, I think, either 14 or 15 by one of his uncles, and told, like, you're gonna go and become a man now. And so he goes, and he beds this prostitute, and he really was doing it because he was told to. That winds up giving him the syphilis that winds up destroying his mind later. Um, and it's extremely sad.
Yeah, it
And
is.
the photo that's taken of him, people think of him as like a raving madman at the
Yeah,
and because the photo that we most associate with him, with the big mustache and like the crazy
yeah,
eyes,
yeah.
that was at the end of his life.
But the ones that in his 30s, it's funny. Only today I quoted one of his, and I saw his pictures when he was probably early 30s. Good looking,
Yeah, very good looking.
balanced, wonderful. Pleasure to look at him. It's a very
Yeah,
pleasant
sharp as a
face.
tack,
Yes,
sharp as a
yes,
tack, and it just ate away at him, and it's extremely sad.
yeah, yeah.
But no, he was. But going back to Frankel, Frankel is very much, him and Frankel have
He's more of a
at the same time.
contemporary, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, again, you think Frankel, Nietzsche passed away in like the late 1800s. Frankel was already like, he must have been born by that time or around that
The turn of
time.
the century he
So
was born.
like
Yeah,
he was born, must have been right after Nietzsche passed.
he was 40, wasn't he?
Frankel when he
Nietzsche.
Nietzsche,
Nietzsche was 40.
I
Yes.
think so.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but yeah, he. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And then you see his sister and his brother-in-law go and take his writings and transform them into what later becomes the Nazi Party. They were 100% hardcore German nationalist, anti-Semitic, and it was against everything that he really believed in. Nietzsche's whole point, and this is where him and Frankel have their intersection, and also when Frankel has his birth, is in you must have the strength to 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 put forward your own morality, to seek and to truly put forward your own
So, like,
morality.
make it personal for that
Make
sake.
it that truly personal. It's one of the reasons why he liked Zoroaster so much, because he had the strength to make his own religion. And when it came to like Zarathustra, Zarathustra's Zoroaster.
Zarathustra. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Siddhartha.
and so that was with him. It was like, Zoroaster was a real person. He's like, you have to work the field. You have to have the fruits of your labor there. And later on, especially with Will to Power, what I don't know if he could have understood is how much hyper individuality can be adjacent and be a fuel for fascism.
You mean to
Because
be used as a tool by others,
well,
correct?
told by others. Because when the fascists took over, they really were able to take this idea of hyper individuality and weaponize it to a way that benefited them exponentially, and they still do it to this day. You know, there's an element there where it's like, oh no, you are strong, you're extremely strong. You should be able to put forward anything into the world that you can go for. They would take the idea of Nietzsche's genealogy of morals between master morality and slave morality,
Yeah.
and try to push more towards this idea of master morality. And it winds up, it's a weird way of actually forcing people into a conformity. What you're doing is, instead of it being a test, like I would say Nietzsche's philosophy is mostly a test. It's effectively giving them the answers to the test, the answers that you want them to have. Of course. But what time is it now? I think I have to.
It's
2:30 right now. I have to head off and take care of a few things. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah, but it's amazing what you say. I was always wondering how it would be when if Nietzsche could have met Hans Fallada. That would have been one for the books, and
Yeah.
how. By the way, some of in the Nazi party were pretty brilliant. Goebbels was brilliant, beyond brilliant,
Heidegger. I mean,
and
Heidegger was
even what's his name, the deputy of Hitler,
Himmler.
him, not Himmler.
Himmler was the SS.
Yeah,
Goebbels was
Goebbels was the
was
propaganda
propaganda.
minister, the Air Force guy,
Oh God, it wasn't
the one that killed himself in captivity.
yeah, he killed himself when he was
Uh,
at the Hague.
so he was a pretty put together individual, very coherent. Goering, correct? Yes. Um, but Hans Fallada was the only one who stayed and didn't leave after the war broke. Hermann Hesse and the likes of him, they all fled, and that's why he got away with a lot. Some of the books, Goebbels used to meet with him once the books were ready, but this guy would write a book, like Wolf Amongst Wolves. You wrote in 45 days. It's insanity. The Drunk, Alone in Berlin. I mean, he wrote it when he was like in the hospital in 4 weeks. But he would go over the book with him and all this, and he always reminded Gilbert, I could have left with the others, but I didn't.
Well, it's an interesting point where it's that intellect on its own doesn't really mean much for a person.
I'm speaking relating to a level of awareness, more like it.
Or the articulation. Because I would say that if you're part of the Nazi party, you're not very aware. You can be articulate, but not aware. You can be structurally ignoring data. You're ignoring the human next to you, the human being, and the human experience. And you can be extremely articulate in it. And because of that verbal articulation, we equate that with being correct, as opposed to somebody who's maybe they're not as articulate, but look at the fruits. Look at the fruits of their labor.
Yeah.
And that's something that should be a little bit more stressed, is that being articulate is not the end all of it. It is the ability to put something forth into the world that has a benefit, And again, when we think back to, the Nazi Party and how they operated, especially when it comes to the philosophy that they took and they augmented for their own gain. Each and every one of them thought of themselves as, they are the ones being the heroic victors of whatever, and because they are strong, they have the right
Yeah.
to go forward.
Yeah.
It's at the core of fascism. Is that it's the
But
equating.
they did not invent anything, you know that. So that was the tragedy, the real kind of.
But that's the nature of all of that.
Yeah,
I mean, look at
yeah,
the Romans. The
yeah.
Romans were very similar in that sense.
But they're more classic, though. I mean, they're
Well,
more
no,
kind of.
I mean, look at Caesar. Caesar murdered at least 1 million Gauls. He brags about it.
Yeah.
He committed a genocide by hand. The only reason though they're classic is because they lasted longer. They weren't virtuous by any stretch of the
And
imagination.
because they left enough room for enlightenment to thrive.
Not by design. And
But it was taking
it
place
was
as a
it.
fact.
Uh, no, I mean you can argue. When you look at the ancient Greeks, they clearly had more that they offered to the world in the end. Rome, what it had was the ability to mechanize and scale. That is what it had, and that it had walls and borders. But when you think about the idea of an enlightenment, they lacked. They lacked. The art of the Romans is think about this: 1,000 years over Pax Romana. How long did it last? The art of them wasn't profound. They copied the Greeks, and they never did anything with it afterwards. It's the nature. Going back to the idea, going back to with the Nazis and fascism.
But they didn't give themselves the chance to live up to their potential.
They had enough time.
No, but I mean, in those years like 40s, 50s, 60s, they had the chance to really excel and show the world with arts, with science, with everything. They didn't give they shot themselves in the foot and all this.
It's the nature of
But
all fascists.
yeah, but I mean, obviously you would think that they would kind of be
No.
taken by the the potential destruction that they have to offer by way of what, lying to themselves, manipulating the crowd, lying or telling the truth, so much so that you can lie when you tell the truth. Absolutely, you know what I mean. Something kind of weird, but it was. I think that they allowed Hans Fallada to survive because they wanted to preserve an example of the
Sure.
wonderful, clean cut, incredible prototype that the German concept, attitude, society was before. When there were times that they could really not only appreciate but the arts, but live it to its fullest.
It was insane. It was an insane period of time because
Yeah,
you take the Germany beforehand, it was uh, many ways a safe haven for the Jewish population, and it was known for that. That's why there are so many Jews in Germany and Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia. No, it was Czech. It was Czechoslovakia at the time, and Hungary. There was a huge amount in Europe, and their arts flourished because of it. It's so funny. It's like Wagner. One of the reasons why he became a huge anti-Semite is because of his jealousy of Mendelssohn.
yeah.
He despised him. He went to because he first loved him and he wanted his approval. So he goes to Paris, and Wagner sees Mendelssohn, and Wagner was like this fat, not emotionally attractive person either. Kind of a, just troll-esque. And Mendelssohn was this very attractive,
Yeah,
very attractive French, Jewish, Parisian man who ladies were just falling for, and he loved being who he was. And Wagner, he rejected Wagner. He's like, get out of here. And so, and that was one of the key parts of that started Wagner's just
harboring
obsessive
resentment. Yeah,
obsessive hatred of it,
yeah, yeah,
and it destroyed. I mean, it's so funny. It's like going back to one of the ideas of like Nietzsche not liking Wagner and also not liking this idea of German nationalism. It came down to that it was It was rooted in fantasy. I mean, I love listening to Wagner. I love listening to it without the music, without the words. As Mark Twain said, Wagner was always better before he put those words before words. Um, just the structure of
But
the
we can
music
also
was
do
amazing.
without, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
and
the beauty.
yeah, but it was interesting because Wagner rooted everything into a mythical idea of Germany, a mythical idea of something, and then later on, that becomes the impetus for people's idea of, oh well, we're actually descendant of a magical time in Germany. Like the Nazis were always trying to rewrite history,
Yeah.
that the German people were um, some sort of ancient Aryan race that ruled the world, and this is the return of them to power. And a
But they
lot of
already
that,
had something that they wanted to fight for so much. They already had it. I don't understand. What is it that they try to venture? They already had this greatness, that level of sophistication, everything. So I don't understand.
because if you were the master, because it goes back to the idea of master morality, right? So, but if you were the master race, you could never have had, if you're basing it all off of genealogy, if you're
So
basing
you're
it
not
off of
allowed to succumb to
genes,
or to be
ever
subject to.
ever at a time that you were weaker, you can't, if you are hardcore into the idea of eugenics and the idea that one race would rule another race based off of their genes, you can't ever have a point where your race was less than.
But
The,
knowledge
the,
rules, you have
the
to agree.
no, no, but they
And,
don't.
and, and they came from the epitome of knowledge.
No, but not the Nazis. No. The Nazis did not come from the epitome of knowledge. The Nazis came from the epitome of fantasy,
Yeah, but the
not
German
knowledge.
people came from knowledge and knowing that this heritage is not fiction.
But no,
Their
for
own heritage, I
no, no, but
mean.
they create to them. Let's remember, the Nazis went and did great work to try to rewrite history. They had archaeologists go to places like Egypt and ancient Greece and put down symbols and say, see, the Nazis people, they were actually the Nazis, that we were the master race long before, and this history was undone. There was a lot of that. There was a
Hmm.
lot that was a big part of it, is the idea of rewriting history, because again, it was based off of the idea that other races are less than. It wasn't based off of the idea of knowledge. Knowledge is earned. Knowledge is something you have to work for. And if you're smart and another person's smart and you both have put forward the work, that's great. You've succeeded by your merits.
Yes, correct.
And the fantasy at the core of the Nazi Party was not succeeding by your merits, but succeeding by your race,
By your race, by your
which is
power, by
why
your
they
position. Yeah.
which is why they wanted to go forward and eradicate the Slavs, eradicate the Jews, eradicate everyone else, because they were racially less than. Again, it was based off of a fantasy. So that's what I shall leave you with that, my friend.
Yes, I know. Well, the next time I will talk to you about how they felt when they looked themselves in the mirror. That's a whole story in itself. Thank you, Jason. So that was Jason helping me here with some things, and by the way, sitting with me, and just like that, giving us the pleasure to enjoy his presence and his wittiness and intelligence. Let's see how long did we. Oh boy. Okay, very good. So 20, and that will be 60. That would be great, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So it's amazing how we sometimes need to have an additional plan how to manage the mountains of achievements that we have in our lives. So many people don't even get to a point where they realize the extent of their achievements, and therefore they don't do anything about it. And even those who know, you have to get a real heavy duty, intense crash course to understand how to operate it and how to utilize your achievements by way of, of course, the most important thing, to share with the world, to share with people, to share because it's a good thing, because you know that you would like other people to help them expedite the process of becoming aware and realizing uh, uh, the extent of beauty and magic and level of sophistication and all the things that we actually achieved by hard work, but for some reason we ended up neglecting, ignoring, or not knowing to begin with at all that it's even there. So the and you know, and in more ways than one, it goes hand in hand with the unfolding reality of an artist that wants to go into the immediate zone of the center of creation, or the center of the stage upon which one creates, and um, get a good look in order to be able to feel more comfortable every time you spend time on that stage. And speaking of entertaining ideas to become something that whom, whom you're not, you know, and preaching in the name of something that you don't quite understand, and it's so um, old news to have a group flex its muscles and say, well, guess what? We can shove this down your throat. We can do so many things, and you can do exactly nothing about it. So it's just like you want to stand in front of the world and say, really? That's how it's going to go? That's how it's going to be? Really? I can tell you, for example, of this example of a wonderful dancer that was married to a very famous pianist in the 30s, and they both ended up in Auschwitz, and she managed to escape. I mean, just imagine the people that wants to manifest their level of sophistication and the tip of what their intelligence looks like and is all about. And you get to a point where you just imagine for a second a group of 2,000 people arrive to Auschwitz, to the platforms then, and just one person out of these 2,000 realizes instantly what's going on. Forget about not experiencing a heart attack exactly on the spot once you realize what you're witnessing, but that woman looked right, looked left, and took a few steps towards a direction she wasn't supposed to, and just dropped, pretending she's dead. And later on, she described the noise, the chaos that she heard and felt when she was there, as people thought she was dead, obviously. So she managed to stand up 10 hours later in the middle of the night and escape Auschwitz. I mean, imagine how difficult that is. Imagine when your psyche is so disheveled and so torn to pieces, and you want to think creatively, and you want to let all these juices of survival to kick in and do the work for you, so to speak. And then she went outside Auschwitz, and remember, the German army, there was a platoon of German army surrounding the outer fences of Auschwitz. So that means forget about it. And the impossibility. She managed to get out of Auschwitz. She managed to bump into two other escapees and allowed them to join her. And all the three of them found their way all the way to the Warsaw Ghetto. And then they fought the war in the Warsaw Ghetto with the Germans and whatnot. And then she ended up being caught again and taken back to Auschwitz. Just think about when we think about ourselves. I went to the grocery store and I needed to buy things so urgently and it was closed. Wow, what a disaster. So, next time, before we think about actually driving 10 minutes to buy something somewhere and realizing that place is closed, and we are like feeling like the world is collapsing on us. So, that level of determination uh, and uh, and resolve and stubbornness and focusing using a special focus on a process that favors your chances to snap out of it and maybe find your way and find yourself in residing in the hands of freedom, and maybe living another day to see the light that never stopped shining. But gathering all the heritage of both ends, the ends, or the one end that became a fascist, and the other that was trying to fight for the continuation and preservation of the concept of humanity, and that which is compatible with the qualities of being a human being, a passionate human being, a loving, considerate, and appealing, and intelligent, and sensitive, and balanced, and full of regard for everyone, everywhere. I mean, you think about that, and you think about the opponent, about the villain that came from these wonderful family gatherings, came from those concerns of parents that you should do well, that you should become a scientist or a musician or a doctor or an author or a teacher, or all these beautiful, promising roles in life that make other people benefit from it on so many levels. So in that sense, you find yourself actually rolling with the punches, and the punches, they don't hurt you a bit. They're just like a friendly reminder that you have company, that you're not alone out there. But to be able to tolerate that level of tragedy, but I want to say something that's maybe earlier than tragedy. Uh, anyway, tragedy is fine. That that confines you, and that uh, shows its face so abruptly and so instantly, and suddenly it's from 0 to 100, and you're in jail without being in a confined space. You can go anywhere and anywhere, anytime, as you wish, but you're in jail all the time. In jail, you know that it's closing in on you, even though you don't see it. That which will become the defining lines of your of the process of the depriving you from breathing uh, the good air, the air that you deserve. So when I read the books about survivors, it was more like ah, how many nights we were missing reading a good book, and sipping on good wine, smoking a cigar, and having some constructive conversations with loved ones and friends, and making love, and taking a walk, holding hands, and just constantly doing good by others. And you'll find yourself in some moments that the obsession for power uh, is is uh, is something that I can relate to, if only because spending so many hours during my lifetime in the studio, in the place where I create, where I write, where I paint paintings. That is, it's it's a never ending. Let's put it this way: it's a never ending process upon which you are wheeling and dealing with your reflection, and you're quite aware, and you're quite clear about your understanding of what the composition is all about, and you want to continue to know that you will have thing that thing that you need to have available to offer, to actually say, I got you covered, I got enough for you too. All you need to do is express your wishes to be a part of this fiesta, part of this engagement, to relocate and rebuild, and reconfigure uh, all that heritage full of achievements that we don't want to let go. We don't want to we don't want to just give it up. There's so many generations worked on these achievements to have you now feel the feelings of entitlement, which is okay, but hoping that you will be the one that will take it to the next level, like your forefathers did. And maybe even in the face of thinking that's too much to think for and wishful thinking and whatnot, still, nevertheless, it's uh, it can happen. Most probably will happen, and if you're not going to be vigilant, it will happen under your nose. You won't even know that it did. But it does. Don't rush to judge. Don't rush to declare that you haven't seen it and therefore it doesn't exist or didn't make an attempt to show its face. So in that sense, you really want to gather, let's say, the goodwill. I wake up in the morning and I think about my deposits of my strength. It's almost like if you're a wealthy person and you have $5 million in the bank. I wouldn't be surprised you if you would be thinking about the $5 million as soon as you open your eyes in the morning. I wouldn't say that I would be surprised or thinking, "Oh, no, really." I mean, waking up saying, "Okay, I got enough millions. I'm okay. Let's see how I can make myself useful." Hopefully, so I would wake up in the morning and then I will realize that actually the achievements that can be very trivial to others and super meaningful to you, as you will be the one to engage and to be responsible for the results that people will just keep on wanting to come and experience and observe and and uh, and admire and take notice of and be enlightened by and benefit by and also just feel good. Usually the good stuff that you think when you create and you define them as good, I'm good with it, I can live with it, it's good, guarantees will benefit people tenfold. It's a no-brainer. In all the conversations that I have with people, as we're talking about the obviousness of goodness, there is such a thing called the obviousness of goodness, especially because you're one of those who have in place enough deposits to just continue steady as she goes, sending forth and sending forward towards the crowd that you know that is kind of coming your way. You kind of send it so they can meet halfway and then show the gesture of your kindness because you know how anxious they are. So you kind of let them have a little taste of it, that which they're hoping when they reach the destination, send that a portion of the destination their way so they can meet halfway. Now, this is all more fiction than reality, but I call it more fiction in reality. So it's more reality than fiction by having fiction as a component that brings sturdiness into the equation of having your own stage relating to the concept of your definition and that which you have to offer. Because eventually you want to say, wait a second, so what is it all about? Wait, remind me. I noticed you mentioned something at the beginning, but I wasn't paying attention. What is it that we're talking about? What is it that you're trying to communicate? What is it that you expect for me to hope to get from you? And what is it? Do I need to wait and see and feel it coming and it's coming? And even if I don't see it coming, then because I trust that it's coming, it will come. And then when I'll be so patient, I will get tenfold. I will get much more than I deserve, and I get disproportional amount and this and that. What is it? No, most of the time, when that which I just described to you happens, before you go back to look for accountability, it's already phase two. It's already phase three. Think about it. So by the time I'm becoming suspicious and say, yeah, you say yes to everything I say, and I have a feeling that you just say yes to please me, and on the surface nothing happens. So I'm, um, the more I think while I'm actually communicating with you, the more I realize that it takes me further away from from catching it in a point where I can send it back to its origin, back to square one, back to basics. But it always happens that the emotions and the vibes are so heated that by the time you realize it, it's a new phase, and you have to earn a permit to enter that new phase because it's a new rules, new location, new everything. Here you're a celebrity. In the new phase, you're no one to be. No one. You're a no one, and you know where to be found. And you and nobody nowhere, nowhere, nobody, nothing. So it takes some getting used to, but because you're going to be the one that's going to work around these qualities, no matter where you are, your duration of that journey is actually becoming more and more efficient, and then you can achieve these things that you, when they disappear, you miss so much. Yeah, you want to treasure it, and you want to benefit from it. You want to. So thank God for downloading, and thank God for storage, and thank God for the other day I remember I remembered to send an email, all these files from another iPad, whatever. Long story short, I sent it, and then I sent it to Google and all this, and then of course the next day I lost the iPad, or so the next following week, and all the material was there, but I don't know what made me send it to myself. Just plain simple, good old email. Saved my life, saved the hundreds and hundreds of hours of writing. But anyway, and that is to say, so that goodness, what is the nature of the goodness that even if it stands still, it extends into distances that are just unimaginable? What is the characteristics that define that which is usually useless to try and do? Defining strength, defining meaning, defining passion, defining, and then you can ask 100 times only so you can arrive to this kind of wonderful, simple, straightforward answer. Uh, um, defining, define wondering, ask about reflections, wonder about contemplations, and you will guaranteed to prevail. How about that? Does that sound good? It does sound good. It is good. And I'm sure you can achieve that, and I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't already achieved it. And if you're puzzled and you're catching yourself saying to yourself, "What is he talking about? What's going on?" Don't worry. Just abandon these wanderings. There's certain wanderings you have to promote, certain wanderings you gotta abandon, because you want to go with the humming as opposed to the disability of singing. In the face of that disability, humming sounds really a good idea. So when that you connect faster with the elements that are hiding in the bushes, because they know well enough that maybe, yeah, this is time to show their faces, and when they show their faces, they don't regret it. They know instantly that they made a good choice, and you know instantly that you just earned yourself a friend. You don't know how, why, how come, what for, what this, what that, but you know for a fact that it's a part of reality. It's yours. It's you. It's for you. It's with you, for your sake, for your sake, for their sake, for your sake. It's just a playful scenario that most of its ingredients are at your disposal. And we know for sure that you're going to make it be your business to do something with this knowledge, because that knowledge is coherence, awareness. I love this word, awareness. Awareness, being aware of, getting into that zone of awareness, which is enlightenment. Awareness is enlightenment, is a guaranteeing us, when you're there in the midst of alongside awareness. Enlightenment is a given. Long before awareness is fading into the thin air, enlightenment shows its face. Lucky for us. Lucky for us. Because every time I think about a potential delay of any sort, I already realize that there's a knock on the door and complete distraction, and I open and there's no one there. It's just someone in the house went like, or something, or something, And then you learn so much from this encounter. But this declaration is something that you had to utter. Because when you went to the door, you heard the knock. You didn't know there might be someone in the house that did something that resembled the knock on the door. But you went, you found out, you closed the door. And now you have to make a decision. Are you going back to the bedroom where you were, to what you were doing, continuing? Or something is going to happen between where you are, the main door, and the bedroom, and it will cause you to do something else, go somewhere else. And then maybe we're going to benefit from it. Because maybe you'll end up in the studio and you're going to paint the painting of your life. Maybe you're going to write the whole group of the best poems you will ever write in your life. And this happened just because you had to go and supposedly answer the door, only to find out that no one is on the other side. So to speak of benefiting, usually from that which is by all means more often than not awkward, than not peculiar, than not questionable in sense of what's this rapid changes before we ever wish to get an answer. You're in different phases, and it wants to remind you that that's what you exactly doing, you know, feeling comfortable sitting on top of the mountain and feeling like are within your rights to start preaching, which of course the last thing that you want to do, and you're aware of it. But you just kind of exercise this kind of moment of I don't know, reversed enlightenment, where you realize, oh my God, actually, it's so delicious. I'm just gonna let it go. I don't need it now. This this divine taste is not something I can handle right now. Let me have something salty, like let me have a coffee black or coffee with 5 sugars and heavy cream. Let me have something. But the level of seriousness takes place in order to stabilize and maintain that dignity and the balance that is so crucial for our attempts to thrive and to survive and to prevail in the sense of maintaining the integrity of our actions and the integrity of the of your attempt, that it will show a level of mm, uh, clarity, coherence, common sense, just plain and simple body walking gestures of spirit and thoughts and all the things that filters through and all the things that is sent forth, just the whole ins and outs. And you are very surprised that you're actually so calm and so regular in the face of all these happenings, because you know that things don't really happen around you or with you and in your life without being aware of it. Unfortunately for you, you've been aware of way too much. But you're still young and you still don't have to worry about that, because you're going to benefit from it and you're going to benefit to the utmost of your ability. And you're not going to have second thoughts and second guessing or anything like that. You will go through you will show the world that you will do whatever it takes. Sometimes you'll be spared because your credibility will impress people, and then we'll cut some slack, and then we'll just tell you, okay, up on your merry way. It's okay. We forgive you this time. We'll see you second time around there. And then you'll find yourself in your sacred vicinity and with all the memories of your contributions that even you yourself know that they were not little or they were not few. And that the nature of your contribution is also uh, passionate and obsessive and determined and stubborn and insisting. So the more you insist, the further away you go from obsession, and that's something that that's something that you actually understand. Yeah, let me see. Let me just say that we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were yesterday and as much as we're here this afternoon, February 16th, year 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi. Keep up the good spirits. We love you. We'll see you soon. Thank you.